There is nobody that feels stronger about the intelligence community and the CIA than Donald Trump. There's nobody.
As we all know, former President Donald J. Trump had a whole list of haters. Probably more than most people will ever have in their lifetime, but you have to be a special kind of person to have the CIA turn against you. Recently, the CIA published new information describing their relationship with the former president, and let's just say things weren't always the most professional. Former CIA officer John Helgerson is the author of the book Getting to Know the President, which has recorded accounts of various CIA intelligence briefings with past presidents since the Truman era in 1996. The latest updates talk about the briefings the CIA had offered to the 2016 presidential candidates, which meant Hillary Clinton was also briefed. When a president is elected and sworn into office, they are given a president's daily brief by the CIA to stay updated on national security issues. When it came to dealing with President Trump's administration, that transaction was far and away the most difficult in its historical experience, with briefing new presidents, according to Helgerson. During Trump's first initial briefing with the CIA, he listened to the information they gave him and even admitted that a lot of the information being given to him was new to him. After he won the presidential election, the briefings always began with a delay because his team didn't expect to win the election, so launching transition operations weren't properly executed. That doesn't exactly sound like the type of professional or presidential decorum you'd expect to see from the leader of the free world, now would you? He had a good team with him too. During his transition phase, he had his briefings led by a group of 14 officials chosen by a CIA analyst turned professional briefer, Ted Gustero. These people were members of the State Department, CIA, FBI, and other places where you would probably feel like the most powerful human being alive to have right by your side. But it's only as good as you make of it. To give you a short answer, President Trump was difficult to work with. When he got into office, he became combative against the CIA and often refused to listen to the information being presented to him. Trump was dismissive of the Intelligence Committee and would fly off on tangents. There might be 8 or 9 minutes of real intelligence in an hour's discussion, according to the former Director of National Intelligence, Jim Clapper. Things took a turn when controversy regarding Russia's involvement with the 2016 U.S. presidential election was brought into question. Trump was made aware of a dossier compiled by British intelligence officer Christopher Steele that had contents in it with a document revealing classified information, and it was to be delivered during the assessments. But Trump brushed it off. He decided to trust his acquaintance, Russian President Vladimir Putin, over the CIA. In fact, he took it as a setup by the CIA against him. According to what Helgerson wrote, Trump vented for 10 minutes about how the Intelligence Committee was out to get him. That's when he started to get very vocal on his feelings about the Intelligence Committee. He would refer to the committee as the deep state that was trying to undermine his work as a president. But despite this, Trump was described as amicable during his meetings with them in person. Helgerson wrote, even during times when President Trump publicly expressed great irritation with the IC, most notably in 2019, when an Intelligence Committee employee filed a whistleblower complaint concerning the president's efforts to have Ukraine investigate a political opponent, Joe Biden. Briefings continued as usual, and Trump's demeanor during the sessions remained the same. Was this a ploy on Trump's part, or was it part of his typical tough guy approach? While that may not be clear, what is clear is that despite his ego, Trump kept it in check to deal with the Intelligence Committee. But he forced them to operate under his rule, which wasn't unusual for them to do with each president. President Obama was the first president to receive his briefings on an iPad. At the beginning of Trump's run as a president, he would have 2.5 sessions a week that would range between 40 to 60 minutes in length, but would go on long if Trump engaged in his usual tangents, which he did. Some of his administration members were more informed about what information the Intelligence Committee had to share before Trump, like the CIA director nominee at the time, Mike Pompeo. One of the highly important topics he was ignorant of was covert actions, which influence economic, political, and military conditions abroad. When delegating his own PDBs, his were typical, 3 one-page items describing new developments abroad, plus brief updates of ongoing crises in the Middle East. The goal was to make PDBs PDB shorter and tighter, with declarative sentences and no feature-length pieces. He would receive oral briefings only 2 to 3 times a week, but they were only on the significant parts of issues the Intelligence Committee wanted to bring to Trump's attention. In terms of his attention to international affairs, he gave very little focus on Europe, only on the NATO budget issues, Turkey, and the elections in France and Germany. The parts of the world where Trump turned a blind eye on were Latin America, Africa, and Southeast Asia. But he did give his attention to countries most people weren't surprised to hear about. One of these countries was China. In terms of his relationship with China, Trump made things worse between China and the US. In 2017, he raised the tariffs on Chinese products by billions of dollars. This put the US in competition with them and, frankly, somehow caused Trump to believe he could just blame China for everything. Ever since then, he's kept pushing for ways to block China's involvement with the international trade with the US. Also, let's not forget him referring to COVID-19 as the Chinese virus, which caused hysteria amongst Americans into blaming Chinese people for bringing it here. Yeah, President Trump was accused of breaking the law in August of 2019 by pressuring Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to find information on Joe Biden that he could use against him in the 2020 election. It's illegal to ask for foreign entities for help in winning a U.S. election, which caused Democrats to fire up the trial of the century. After Trump was impeached in December, a trial took place that could have led to the president being removed, but he was proved not guilty. He was also accused for colluding with Russia, which was also proven to be false. Trump was so uninterested in reading what they had brought to him that they had to approach it as if they were storytelling. Eventually, many of Trump's PDBs were given to his vice president, Mike Pence. This method continued all throughout Trump's presidency, up until a month before the January 6th resurrection that occurred this year. Before the insurrection, Trump and his closest advisors kept busy trying to overturn election results in the states like Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin by pushing lies and supporting conspiracy-laden legal challenges that eventually went bust. There was his infamous phone call demanding that Georgia's top elections official find 11,780 votes, not to mention his despotic attempt to get the U.S. Supreme Court to declare Wisconsin's election unconstitutional. Needless to say, he was busy covering his tracks instead of listening to people who were on his side. The only other president known to have behaved similarly to Trump during their term is President Richard Nixon. But unlike Trump, he would completely ignore his PDBs altogether and have his national security advisor, Henry Kissinger, receive them on Nixon's behalf. Trump wouldn't read his PDBs either as the 2020 election rolled around, but he at least listened. With all of the controversy surrounding Trump and his involvement with various countries and organizations, we are sure working as a CIA member was a daunting task during Trump's run as president. Even Hillary Clinton had more class in dealing with her briefings during the 2016 election. Given all that Clinton was going through related to her handling of personal emails during the campaign, Gustero regretted that the first question the security officer asked Clinton as she approached the room was whether she had any cell phones with her, the history recounts. The secretary very professionally assured the questioner that she had left her cell phones at home. This certainly gives us a better understanding on how things were handled under the Trump administration. Trump has become a cult of personality for the Republican Party, who built his campaign on America First, with his mission being to drain the swamp. But one could say the only thing drained was his resources because he wasn't using them properly. Let us know what you think in the comments section down below. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.